Yes, yes,
So yeah, episode one was great. Jinju became a space of mystery.
yes. And
Thank
two
you.
is we introduced Namjoon.
Okay, yeah.
So we introduce him. So we should start.
Okay, we used to start. Okay,
Okay. All
please
right.
go ahead. Thank you
So
very much.
uh,
Okay,
yes, yes, it's like a Korean soap opera. I like
okay,
it.
okay.
um, all right. So last week we left it that we introduced and we talked about Confucianism and how it evolved and how it came to Korea and some of the major Confucius thought leaders over there. And at the end, we introduced a new character or a new major character in the storyline, which is Namjoon. And we introduced him that he came from the lineage of Confucianism, but he did not follow the same path, and he went back to the area to the area to study more Confucianism there next to Jinju City. But saying this, we cannot, it's like a coin. You cannot talk about Namyan Joshik without talking about someone else. It's just, it has to go hand in hand. That's what's the idea, hand in hand. So we have to talk about Yi Wang Togi,
Oh,
which is a major figure exactly at the same time as Namyang Joshik. And both were born in the same year, if you think about it, 1501. So two people were born in the same year, um, and they became major influential leaders in Korea during the Joseon dynasty. And so there's Joshik and Yi Wang, right? Yi Wang, if you look at the 1,000 won of Korea, his picture is on the currency. So if you take 1,000 won, pull up the 1,000 won of Korea and look at the back, you see the picture of Yi Wang. And I personally always wondered, why does only Yi Wang show up on the Korean currency? Why him only? Why, if you have two people so influential, that only one person shows up on the currency and has a statue? And I asked Kishan this. I said, Kishan, why? And he goes, oh, good question. There's a story behind this. So it's like the best analogy to give you, and it's like the best Western analogy is if you have twins, twins that are born, right? And one becomes very famous and everybody knows who he is, right? And the other one, nobody knows who he is, but they're actually twins. We've seen movies of this,
okay.
and one is in the currency of the Korean 1,000 won, and his twin, not a lot of people know about him. So, so what happened? So let's take them both because now we're introducing a major character in the storyline of Korean entrepreneurship, K entrepreneurship here that we have to understand. So, Joshik was born in 1501 and died in 1572. Yi Wang was born in 1501, died in 1570. So they lived the same time and they died 1 year apart, just to show you how close they were. All right. Both lived in the historical period was the Joseon dynasty, right, which is the 16th century. So they both lived during the Joseon dynasty. And what was interesting, which was different here, is that their approach, their primary area of understanding Confucianism was Joshik was about ethics, what was about moral conduct and social reform. Very rudimentary, very basic, ethics about what is the ethics, what's the moral conduct, what's the social reform. While Yi Wang talked about more about philosophy, metaphysics, and new Confucian theory. I'm an academic, I'm a professor. What we're talking about here is the classic literature, the classic learnings versus more practical, more expeditious learning, right? And and this concept kind of changed the way we both have operated. One was about being very practical, about being righteous, taking the righteous action, doing the right thing, right? while Yi Wang was more about the principle, what they call it Li, the Li principle or inner moral connection, right? So Yi Wang was more about knowledge and understand. You get knowledge to understand. Joshik, you gain knowledge to take action. Okay, different approach. One is more action oriented, one is more understanding. um, Teaching style was Joshik was very strict, was very disciplined like his father, if you look at his father, and it was all about character. It's about the person, the individual. um, Yi Wang was more about reflective, analytical, text based, exactly. So, so what does that mean? That means that when Joshik went into the area of basically the Chang'an country, which is how do you say it? Sanxiong county,
San,
Sanxiong,
Sancheong, you mean?
yeah, near Jinju, yeah, that area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So over there, he basically was a little bit away from the central power of Seoul, okay, or that area. So they were very critical of the government. And Joshek was very critical. He criticized the government, not in a bad way, but always told it what it should be doing better. Okay? Um, Yiwang was more in the Andong area, which is in South Korea, and they were more close to the Confucius Center, which is more of the government type of thing. Right? So here's,
Next time when you come to Korea, I'll bring you to Andong this time.
yeah,
Whether
I want to go see Andong. Yeah. And so the best analogy for me is Joshik was a farmer.
okay,
More of a farmer, ruler, outside in the country, and Yuan was more a city boy.
that's right.
Or a city guy. You know what I mean? Two different. Again, I'm comparing it to America, which is, a cowboy, a city guy. Just for fun. But the analogy holds because people don't understand it in the Western. What do you mean? It means this guy came from the wild, wild West. He was out there. It was all about action. It was all about doing the right thing. The other one was more city, library, coffee shops. Let's have talk. Let's have tea. Let's discuss, type of thing. But there was the visual. If you look at them, if you want to imagine how it looked like, right? In the Sanjong area was about ruler, was about mountainous. It was close to the power centers, but right not there, right? And the other one was more, it was in the middle of the intellectual hub. It was like Vienna during the early 1900s, where all the intellectual powerhouse was there, type of
Mm,
thing, or like London, or like Rome, where the power resides, and the other ones were outside, not close, right? So this is where it gets interesting. This is now where the dynamics change, right? And this is where it gets really kind of fascinating here. You know, you think where the person has a lot of power that they control, have more power over the country, the military, and the people because they're in the center of it. They're like in Rome, they're like in the areas where there's a lot of power. But funny thing is that even though they have a lot of power, Yuan had because of the city, right? The military strength of Korea, which came to be, was outside the capital. Was in the area outside, which were on the borders of China and Japan. And this is where we start first seeing the creation of what we call the righteous army. Okay. And this is where it gets really fascinating because until then, the argument is okay, well, so really Joshek was influential, but really had no power. Fair enough, you can make that statement. He had no power. And his teachings was very practical, very rudimentary, very farmer-like, if you may. but the intellectual firepower, the thought, the theory, the power, the prestige, all that came with Yi Wang. Heck, he's in the 1,001 currency. Okay, so you could see that he had, but what happened here, which is funny how kind of like that's why I keep saying it's like a Hollywood movie, right? Um, is that when war happened, right? When things went really bad, right? The people with less power saved Korea, right? And I'm talking about the Imjin Wars, right? Where the invasion, right? So the Imjin Wars, when the invasion happened, Namyang and his followers warned the capital, warned, and told Andong, warned them, saying, listen, we think there is danger coming. We know, we have intelligence, we feel it, we understand that there might be an invasion coming. And they dismissed him. And, they said, "Oh no, nothing's gonna happen. This is not serious. Don't worry about it. We know what we're talking about. You guys are in the peripheral. You guys have no idea. You don't have the intellect, the capacity to understand politics, to understand nuance, to understand all this stuff. Leave it to the people in the center. We know." And yet, when the Imjin Wars happened, right, the people that saved Korea was what the word came out was called the righteous army, right? And that righteous armed army came from the Jochik area, came from the farmers, came from the outside peripherals. And that's kind of exciting because now you see the whole story changes in which people are going to almost die or there's going to be an invasion. And the people that were considered second class or not as important save the people that thought that they know more, right? And that's where I feel the fascination happened. And this is the first time we understand that Joshik had major influence, not only on the influence of of the area of the people that followed him, but on the fate of Korea, the history of Korea. And that's why I'm doing these webinars and I wrote the article, right? He is the person that is a true hero that saved Korea the first time and then the second time around. He saved Korea twice, in my opinion. And the first time is because he was the catalyst for the righteous army. And over there, I started doing some studies on him, but there were two key figures. One that Kisha and I were talking about, Jeong In Hong, right, which we know, and the other one was Guak Jae, right, if I'm going to pronounce them. These are two famous. One always wore red. He always wore a red uniform in battle, right, which was kind of good and bad because red means power, but bad because everybody knows where you are, so they can chase you. Um, and so the righteous army saved Korea against the invasion. We know that as a fact. And Korea has a holiday, right? Right, Kishan? There's a
Yes,
national
yes,
holiday.
yes.
So here, from a Western perspective, from a researcher, if you try to convince me saying Korea celebrates the righteous army victory, but they don't celebrate Joshik, why? Is the question. Why is it that the person that's created indirectly or directly the righteous army, that Jeong In Hong was influenced by Joshik and the whole area, and now we talk about Samsung, we talk about why is this person not in the currency of Korea? Why not have a commemorative currency, 2001, and have, Joshik in it? I'm not complaining, I'm just saying, why not? He has done enough to merit such prestige. And we'll get into that later in the next episode. But Joshik, what I call, had moral influence on the righteous army, right? And Yuan had institutional or intellectual leadership. Yes, he was more insightful, had more stars, if you think about it from a general perspective, right? But no connection to the righteous army. Joshik, we know, directly had connections through his teachings. And the legacy if you think about the legacy, it was action driven. That's what Joshik always talked about. Take action, a resistance mindset, criticize, do the right thing, be moral. Just don't think about it, but do something about it, right? Um, and Yuan was more about establishing a tradition, practice, a new tradition and more prestige type of thing. So at the bottom, at the end of this episode, we see a divergence. One is act with righteousness. In American terms, is do the right thing. In Western is understand the principle. Well, okay, understand, you know, and here is how things separated between them both. So now that changes the perspective tremendously on how we see Joshik, right? Now we understand the significance of Joshik the first time around with the righteous army, okay? And so that was kind of in his teachings, nationalism, you know, always protect the country. And we celebrated. Kishan, what is the company or that gave 60% of its money to fund Korea during the war? What was it called?
Then the 백산상회.
Yes.
백산상회, yeah, okay, yeah.
So that company did the righteous thing, the correct thing, which is, in service to the country. We support Korea no matter what. Whatever you do, the company, anything falls under the government. In the United States, we call it the Patriot Act, in which the president can ask any company in the US to produce more goods and services in support of national defense. Same concept type of thing. And yet now we see the difference. So what does that mean? That means we see now that Joshik is equal, or maybe a little bit, in my opinion, had more influence on Korean history in terms of saving it and keeping it alive. I learned that after the fact that Joshik was influential in creating these huge conglomerate businesses that transformed Korea into what it is today, right? And so we see him doing two things in his history that I believe changed the game. I'll stop here. This is episode 3, which is now we make the case for Joshik as being a legitimate leader in Korean thought, history, and action. And then we can continue later on how that impacted the area. I stop here.
Excellent, Ayman, yeah. Episode 3 was the story of Yi Hwang life in the city.
Yes.
And Nam명조식, the righteous man from the countryside.
Yeah, exactly.
In
Exactly.
Hollywood film, it's often the weak and the humble person who raised to do what is the right, ultimately save the world. Likewise, 남명조식 and his disciples saved Korea during the time of 임진왜란, Japan
Invasion. Yes.
Japan invasion. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And both are equally important. Both are like twins. If you tell me, they are like twins. You need one and the other. You cannot just have one. You had to have both at the same time, because both created balance, which was needed at that time. I believe they needed two people at the same time. And maybe look historically, that year, 1501, should be a very important year in Korea, because 1501 is the year that two major thought leaders, philosophers, influencers were born. That is a very special year for Korea, in my opinion, right? That should be celebrated. 1501. I think you should have a T-shirt right on the 1501, type of thing, because it's like 1776 for the U.S., and so 1776, Korea is known, U.S. is known for the year of, being an independent country, right? So 1501, I believe, is a very critical year for Korea. I'll stop you.
I think so, yeah. So then Yi Hwang appears on the Korean currency, paper currency. But Nam명조식 someday, yeah.
I am advocating for the Korean government to create a currency 2001
Okay.
symbolically 2000. So there's 1000 for that, 2000 is for Iwang, and 2000 is for Joshik. You know,
Great.
so
Yeah,
Chairman,
1,000 for Yi Hwang, 2,000
uh,
for Nam명조식. This
like a
is
$2 bill.
$2 bill. Great.
that coin, Chairman, Professor Kim, Chairman, that coin is 남명조식 pictures on the coin.
Yeah,
Yes.
already there. Arman,
Yeah. So that is the Professor Ayman, your institution, the institute, that's you that make it that coin.
Yeah, we made it. Yeah, we made it as symbolically as a gift. Yes.
Oh, it's very nice. Yes.
Yeah. We
so
we
maybe
have
how
collectors.
much
Even
is
Korea,
now?
even
100
Korea,
times
we don't make, but USA, Professor Ayman, oh,
Yeah,
so
but it's okay.
there's
We're asking the Korean government to create a 2001 commemorative coin for Namyang Joshik, right?
yeah. Oh,
Somebody needs to talk
so wonderful.
to the Treasury Department of Korea, ask them to make a coin
Yeah.
or a stamp.
correct. Yeah. So then I have a coin with the 남명조식. 우리 윤정혜 대표님, 이거 팔게요. 이게 저 남명조식 코인인데요. 네. 이황은 1,000원짜리고 1,000원짜리 지폐고 우리 남명조식은 2,000원짜리로 팝니다. 나중에 하나 드릴게요.
저도 하나 언제 꼭
오케이.
갖고 싶습니다. 저희 we Professor Ayman, we some one day about 2 years ago we discussed about the 남명조식's thoughts, and then at the time the members in that group we talk about why it is the same question the Professor Terabashi. 이황 papers in our currency, Korean currency, but there is no 남명조식's paper in our currency. So some members there, they try, let's someday publish the 10만 원 지폐. Is like $100.
Yeah.
The
100,000 the Korean
Yeah.
currency.
So
Yeah.
in the US, they create, and I know because I studied this in the US, you can create, I know now nobody uses them, but you still can. They can create, the easiest thing to do, which takes time, but you can do it, is a stamp, commemorative stamp
Okay.
that they do. Like, they do on Christmas, Easter, you can see the bunny right? But currency, sometimes they do limited edition currencies from the Treasury Department. And but it has to be like, they do 1 million or something like that. And the idea is if you know someone in the Treasury Department or the government or something like this, it takes time, it takes years to do it. But I feel at some point, for historical purposes, Korea should have a currency for Joshik, a commemorative one, a gift of sorts.
Great. Ayman, let us work together so that one day 남명 may appear on Korean currency as a thank you.
Yeah, I think it'll be. I think I will collect it. I will be the first one in line waiting to get to get one.
we eager to
Yeah. Who has a friend in the Treasury Department you can talk to? Somebody has to know someone over there.
윤정혜 대표가 maybe her friend
Yeah.
is going to be person who is
Check if somebody works in the Jinju. Check someone in the Treasury Department that is from Jinju.
Okay. Sorry.
So he has to be from Jinju because he'll be like, yes, yes. You know, the funny thing is, every time when I talk to someone and I tell them I did study in Jinju, they become so happy
Okay.
and they look at me and smile when they tell them I studied Jinju. They look at me and say, I am from the Jinju area. And they take so much pride. And I find it very nice when they say this because it's this concept that still, after all these hundreds of years, you know, till today, there's a proud factor coming from it, saying I'm from Jinju. It's like Jochik never left,
Okay.
you know.
You are also honorary citizen of Jinju.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm doing this. I am, you know, for the mayor. I am honorary citizen. So,
Okay.
all right,
And
Kishan.
one more point that actually that you mentioned about disciple like Hong
Yes.
곽재우 or Zheng Il-hong, who was
Yeah.
the leader of a righteous army.
Yeah.
So I
So
think,
they learned indirectly from Joshek, okay? But they were influenced by him.
okay, correct. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I
But
think Hollywood film for centered on 남명조식 is getting close.
yeah, exactly. But if you look at Yiwang, there was no direct link between him or his followers with the righteous army. None, very little in the history books.
Correct.
But with Joshik, yes, again, it shows you the impact he had. So you know, and I know there's disciples of the righteous army alive till today, I think, and they get honored. And I spoke to a couple saying, yes, I am from the righteous army ancestry, which is very important. I think it's a big deal.
So I mean, finally, then I wanted to get one comment from the Ms. Yoon Jung in Korea.